Hey, what's up everybody? It's OC. I just wanted to take a minute and before I start this episode of the Confusion Records and say there's a lot of stuff going on right now about Kim Jong-un and the North Korean battle, and the stuff that's going on right now is what happened today was that he threatened the U.S. with an electromagnetic pulse bomb, some type of attack using EMP. Now, what that would mean for us is if North Korea were to attack us with an EMP, depending on how they did it, they could cripple our economic system. If that was to happen, we would lose all power and all the places where these weapons were used to attack us. It wouldn't hurt humans itself, but the aftermath would kill billions, okay? All over the place. This would trigger madness everywhere. The dollar would crumble, the New York Stock Exchange would cease to exist, nothing would happen. Everything would grind to a halt, no store shelves would get filled with anything. It would be bad, okay? It would be bad, all right? So just take into consideration, you know, it won't come in by like some rocket or bomb or something like that. It won't come in as a missile. My guess is that he'll probably have some people go to another country, South Korea, China, Japan, anywhere, get fake documents for themselves in that country and then come here from there so that the U.S. wouldn't have any clue that they were here under those false pretenses. So what they would do is they would probably manufacture and make the EMP bombs here, and I do say bombs, they would use multiple ones, I believe, in different places to corrupt the power system, to cripple the economic system. So that's my take on that. But anyway, this episode of the Confusion Records is going to look at some of the stuff that's going on around the earth already, and some of the things you may have already seen, but a lot of the stuff I'm sure you haven't. So here it is. Please click like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Thanks so much for stopping by.
But using the slogan, they got through the USA Patriot Act, which removes many of our liberties. Nobody made a sound when we lost habeas corpus, due process of law. And suddenly Bush managed to get rid of it. Where was a voice on television, aside from mine, that spoke out against this? Where are all those noble jurists, those great lawyers, those lovers of liberty? Where the hell were they? They were nowhere. Now we have a totalitarian government. And the totalitarian government wants to watch everybody, total surveillance of everyone. They listen to the telephone conversations. They look at your credit cards. They look where you travel. We are totally policed. This is contrary to everything in our Constitution.
As former NSA contractor Edward Snowden revealed in 2013, the US government routinely spies on its own citizens.
I, sitting at my desk, certainly had the authorities to wiretap anyone, from you or your accountant to a federal judge to even the president if I had a personal email.
And they lied about it.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
4 years after the Snowden leaks, the government is still collecting Americans' private information. The NSA claims it ended bulk collection of domestic phone calls, but the agency still operates several far-reaching domestic spying programs. Now there's a way to end this unconstitutional practice. The NSA gets its authority to spy on Americans under Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, but the law expires this year after it hits its 5-year sunset, and lawmakers will soon be debating whether to renew it for another 5 or even permanently. Here's why it's vital they let it lapse and don't renew 702. The Attorney General and Director of National Intelligence may authorize the targeting of persons reasonably believed to be located outside the United States to acquire foreign intelligence information. That's the text of the controversial Section 702.
It's a statute that allows the government to collect communications between foreign targets and Americans without obtaining a warrant, without showing probable cause or really any level of suspicion of wrongdoing.
The reason that Section 702 supposedly is useful is so that the NSA can spy on foreigners abroad without having to get a search warrant every time they want to open a wiretap. The problem is they're actually using it to spy on Americans.
US officials have admitted 702 isn't just about spying on foreigners in the run-up to authorizing it. Former NSA head Michael Hayden even said communications with one end in the United States are the ones that are most important to us.
Government officials, when they try to defend the breadth of Section 702 surveillance and the fact that communications of Americans are being obtained without a warrant, point to the fact that the target has to be a foreigner overseas, and that any collection of Americans' information is incidental. We hear that word over and over. It's just incidental.
Communications incidentally collected.
Incidentally acquired under the so-called incidental collection issue.
Incidental U.S. person collection.
Incidentally.
That word has a particular legal meaning, which is somewhat in tension with the common sense meaning. I think anybody listening to that statement, our communications of Americans are picked up only incidentally, would get the sense that the government's not really interested in those communications, that those communications are picked up in some way almost accidentally. And that's not the case at all.
There are safeguards in the law intended to limit the powers granted by Section 702. The government may not intentionally target any person located in the United States and variations on that theme, but the Snowden leaks revealed the existence of two massive domestic surveillance programs operating under
the PRISM program. The government will approach Google or Microsoft or one of those companies and say, here is a target, here's the target's email address, we want all of the stored emails that you have for that target.
Then there's upstream surveillance. The NSA forced telecom providers to install surveillance equipment along their physical networks so that can capture millions of emails and messages in real time, kind of like a wiretap on everyone who uses the internet from the they created. Massive searchable databases, think Google, but for searching the private emails of American citizens.
The FBI routinely searches through databases that include communications that have been picked up through Section 702 surveillance whenever it conducts an investigation, whether a national security investigation or an ordinary criminal investigation.
The FBI, of course, is not a foreign intelligence organization. It's a domestic law enforcement organization. So we know that FBI is using what is supposed to be a foreign intelligence system for domestic law enforcement.
Not only were agents capturing and reading messages between Americans and foreign targets, they were capturing messages written by Americans about foreign targets. Imagine you wrote an email to a friend and mentioned something about a suspected terrorist that you read about in the news. In the body of the message under 702, government agents can read that email.
If you're collecting communications, not just to a target, not just from a target, but communications that merely mention a target or information associated with that target, you are much more likely to pick up entirely innocent communications that are of no interest to you. Not to mention, you're more likely to pick up communications that are wholly domestic between two Americans.
The NSA ended about collection after being ordered to examine the practice by the courts, but the agency has other tricks for surveilling Americans under 702.
Reverse targeting is when the government's actual intent is to get information about a particular known American, but instead they choose a target who is a foreigner overseas, presumably knowing that the American will be in contact with that person.
Reverse targeting is technically prohibited under 702, so agents use a workaround called a backdoor search.
I think that backdoor searches are a form of reverse targeting. Now, backdoor searches are when the government goes into the court, says, we are not targeting any particular known Americans. We have no interest in any particular known Americans. Our only interest here is in the foreign targets. collects the data based on that representation, and then immediately goes looking through the data for the information of particular known Americans.
The NSA even has cutesy code names for some of these abuses. LoveInt is the cutesy code name for spying on your ex at the NSA. It's done enough that they actually have a nickname for spying on your ex.
Even the secretive FISA courts, which oversee the intelligence agencies, have questioned the methods by which the NSA has exploited the law to expand its powers. Documents recently made public revealed that the FISA judges accused the NSA of displaying an institutional lack of candor and ignoring a very serious Fourth Amendment issue, when it hid the fact that its agents were knowingly surveilling USA targets. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence has made public some transparency reports, and the most recent release indicates that the government is currently surveilling more than 94,000 people or organizations with techniques authorized under 702. And how many?
The Office of the Director of National Intelligence last year promised EFF and a number of other civil liberties groups a number, an estimate of how much data that is purely domestic gets swept up. And then just a couple of weeks ago, the new DNI, Dan Coates, went back on that promise.
There were extensive efforts on the part of, I learned, on the parts of NSA to try to come to get you an appropriate answer. We were not able to do that.
Respectfully.
Trump campaign officials and associates themselves seem to have been caught in the surveillance dragnet when they allegedly talked to and about Russian targets, yet administration officials have made it clear they want 702 renewed without any further changes.
The fact that the Trump administration can, out of one side of its mouth, complain about collection under 702, and on the other, say we must, snap our fingers and reauthorize it, possibly even without a sunset, which is something that we've heard coming out of the White House and Capitol Hill, is mind-boggling.
If the government is conducting surveillance to find out who you talk to, and if you're an American and you have a Fourth Amendment reasonable expectation of privacy, then this should not be done through programmatic surveillance, warrantless surveillance.
It's time that the warrantless collection of Americans' communications stop. And that means not reauthorizing 702.
The American people never even got to hear a debate when these programs began in secret under President Bush, and only started to hear about it under President Obama after Edward Snowden leaked information that the government never wanted us to hear. It's time to put a real check on the growing vast powers of our intelligence agencies while we still can. What are your thoughts? We are anonymous.
It's exciting. It's a rare event, period.
Spectacular images of a meteor streaking across the sky.
Exciting stuff, a triple treat, no question about it.
Typically comets that are very far away in the solar system, we tend to see them very, very, very far away. So this comet for us is like, passing in our neighborhood.
A warning about the images that we're about to show you now. Some of you might find them a bit distressing. Rescuers are trying to save a number of whales washed up on a beach in New Zealand.
This is one of the largest mass whale strandings in New Zealand's history.
Look at that, it's very interesting. Conservation officials aren't sure what caused the whales to strand themselves.
It's unprecedented, virtually.
We went out and saw one of the biggest strandings I've ever seen.
New tonight, thousands of dead bees are washing up on a popular beach in Naples. And as you can see, not just dead ones, but ones that are alive, too.
A bee expert I spoke to on the phone today says this is very unusual behavior for the bees.
A plague of vast proportions. Countless locusts have swarmed Bolivia, causing the government to raise the alarm.
But first, we start with this historic win. For the first time, artificial intelligence developed by Carnegie Mellon University has defeated the world's best professional poker players.
In the United States, apparently, TVs have been spying on their owners. That sounds rather sinister.
You're not just watching your TV could also be watching you.
Federal regulators accuse Vizio of tracking TV viewing habits second by second on 11 million TVs.
It wasn't just your viewing habits. They were combining all of this
with all sorts of other information about you, household income, sex, marital status. A really invasive picture was being put together.
You know, you just have to be mindful that these things have the technology to transmit data, and they could be doing it.
All right, it is interesting. Tom.
But lastly, as Daniel explained, it would be also a time of unprecedented or unparalleled and exponential change.
Even the creators of this technology say that because it permanently changes our genes, it may carry terrible risks.
Meanwhile, another conservative group rejected from a college campus, this time at Santa Clara University in Northern California. The reason? Well, take a listen.
Right now, there are a lot of people in this audience, a lot of people that are contacting me on my phone right now that just don't feel safe with this club being here.
The amount of students that would feel unsafe.
They are a direct threat to me. It's not infringing on your free speech to say we don't want this organization on campus.
They don't want that organization on campus.
When we stand for free markets in the Constitution, I'm still trying to figure out how that makes college students feel unsafe. But they found some backwards, reverse engineering way to see that we standing for freedom somehow makes them feel unsafe. And because of that, they've barred our organization from existing and our students' right to assemble. And look, a university is supposed to be a place where disagreement, the free flow of ideas happen, where people can say, I respect your opinion, but I respectfully disagree. Universities are no longer those places. They are really islands of totalitarianism, where if you disagree with the faculty, the professors, the administration, or the left-wing students on campus, you can't respectfully disagree. You will be silenced, you will be suppressed, and you will be called a racist.
Tonight, the city of Buffalo is taking action now in the case of a mother who was arrested for trying to homeschool her own children.
This is utterly unacceptable.
She filed the proper paperwork to homeschool her 2 children, but less than a month later, she says she was arrested for educational neglect.
Harris says she hasn't seen her children in 3 weeks.
But it wasn't just the students. There were members of the staff from that university who came out and talked against you.
You know, the left hates the idea that there are other ideas, and they're trying to really silence anybody on campus that might disagree with their leftist worldview. This is a very dangerous precedent to be set.
Doctors across the UK have been told not to call pregnant women expectant mothers in case they offend transsexual people. Issued by the British Medical Association instructs staff to use the term pregnant people instead. A recent BBC documentary highlighted the dangers of endorsing the view that people can be trapped in the wrong body. Transgender Kids, Who Knows Best featured Lou, who became convinced by pro-trans activists she had to transition or die.
And knowledge will increase, and the increase there implies exponential knowledge increase. In other words, that knowledge throughout human history has stayed pretty level until the time in which we live. It's estimated that the amount of information, just published information, has increased in the last 50 years by 200 trillion times, which is a pretty amazing growth in information.
Rapid advances are being made in the field of artificial intelligence as the world prepares for the 4th Industrial Revolution.
And we are now in what we call the 4th stage of the Industrial Revolution, or Industrial Revolution 4.0 is the way we refer to it, since everything seems to be taking on computer technology.
Where really it's an opening of Pandora's box, where the devices in your physical environment can be used to generate attacks into your technology environment. And oh, by the way, it works vice versa. People can now use computers from faraway systems to attack your Internet of Things devices, the locks on your doors, your HVAC and air conditioning systems, your refrigeration systems. You can do all sorts of really scary things in this new world.
Well, this is just dandy.
Except Amazon is opening up their first smart store this year in Seattle. The first of what's going to be 20 grocery stores.
Online shopping giant Amazon has rolled out its first ever bricks and mortar store.
I love this. Do you love this?
Well,
really?
it's going to be a big
It's a game changer. It's taking the grocery game to a new level. No checkouts, no queues, no money.
Their store they're trialling in Seattle is exactly that. It's the cashless store. So you or I will go in, we'll purchase our groceries, Amazon will have all our data, and we'll just stroll out.
Just walk out.
They will simply register as they come through, whether it's through a handprint, a palm print, through eye recognition, because half of you, actually, in this room, are already in the federal government's database. Your facial recognition has already been recorded, 50% of Americans. So that essentially they have all sorts of different platforms that they can use to recognize who you are, that you go in the store and exactly it works the same way. And as again, Amazon said they're going to open 200 of these stores. How many people work in these stores? A couple. A technician and somebody to make sure that there's law and order. That's it. It's going on and on. I mean, it's... but I find also there's this whole issue we talk about the smart grid, and it's an interesting idea that we talk about living in the world of the Internet of Things. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Well, the Internet of Things, we all see it, right? Our toaster, our refrigerator can be connected, but over and over we're seeing more devices that people are wearing.
See, currently IPv4, which is the system that runs most internets, only has 4 billion addresses. And you realize we have over almost 7 billion people on the planet. That means that address is assigned to whatever device you're using, whether it's your smartphone or your laptop or your computer at home or whatever it is. It has an IP address that's your address, and it sends everything that's for you to that address, and that's how you get your email. So they said we need to expand that, and it's really developing beyond anything I can really comprehend into IP version 6, which is an interesting number. But this is where the Internet of Things comes into being, because instead of having each computer having its own address, it turns out that everything has an address, including you. In other words, when you go and sit down at a computer in a hotel in some place, all you have to do is simply put your hand on the scanner, or your thumb on the scanner, and immediately it downloads all of your information. That computer now becomes your computer. You don't have to log in. You don't have to log out. It's yours everywhere you go.
All of us already are cyborgs. So you have a machine extension of yourself in the form of your phone and your computer and all your applications. You are already superhuman. But by far, you have more power, more capability than the President of the United States had 30 years ago. If you have an internet link, you have an oracle of wisdom. You can communicate to millions of people. You can communicate to the rest of Earth instantly.
But you realize that smartphones are really smart. They're smarter than you are. So that even our accessing of information has changed.
I mean, these are magical powers that didn't exist not that long ago. So everyone is already superhuman and a cyborg.
Even like people like Google are using it to sort your information. It's a little bit creepy, isn't it? I mean, I was looking for a hotel in Amsterdam, and I just clicked on and said, send me price updates on this one particular good deal. And every so often it just pops up. But that's even worse. I was looking for a piece of computer, basically a USB charger, and now I get, wherever I look, I get pop-ups on the side of my page showing me somebody's USB charger that I didn't even ask to look at. But it's interesting. So that it knows me, it's learning me, it has remembered everything that I do, and it's searching out and continually communicating with me. And that's happening to all of us. It's pretty frightening if you get a chance sometime to get a look at what they know about you. We're already moving towards a cashless society.
In the future, you may be getting rid of more than just your wallet. One day, you may not even need your phone. New cashless technologies on the horizon will let you make payments with just your fingerprint.
International Business Times has said basically, our children born today will be the first cashless generation. The Guardian says in Sweden today, only 2% of transactions are made by cash, and they expect that to go to 0.5% by the end of this year. Because money is no longer money, now it's digits. Which is what makes John's prophecy, I think, so very profound in its details, because he describes an economic system that is only possible today. And they've begun to develop what they call tech tattoos.
In the not-so-distant future, you could be wearing all of your personal information, everything from your credit card numbers to your vital signs. It's called the tech tattoo.
It also can be used in banking, saying that keeping financial information attached to your skin would be less vulnerable than inside a loose wallet. It's a platform that basically turns you into a human circuit board, he said. This isn't science fiction. I mean, this is already technology that's in place. He said the supranational sovereignty. In other words, this is a sovereignty, a governorship, a rulership of the world that's above nations. Sovereignty that's ruled by an intellectual elite and world bankers. Okay, that's the picture.
Well, I think that over the last many years, people have talked about how technology is going to replace people. It's actually happening now. And I don't think that many companies, and I don't think the public is really set up for this.
That artificial intelligence and robotics will lead to the elimination. The estimate is it's going to lead to the elimination in the next 20 years, or let's say by 2030, which is less than 20 years. Get this, it's going to lead to the elimination of 2 billion jobs. Half the world's total jobs.
Toy robots, educational robots, industrial robots and domestic robots. The range here is extraordinary. A grill bot can now clean your barbecue. A lawn bot can cut the grass. There's even a famous robot. And of course, it's the advances in humanoid robots which really grab the attention.
The Guardian, a London paper said, in short, there's a strong continuous correlation between the rich getting richer and the poor making that the 90% going deeper into debt. In fact, PBS NewsHour had an interesting article. He said that there are 80 people in the world, 80 people. We're talking about this little section over here. 80 people who own 50% of the world's assets. 80 people who own half of everything there is in the world. People are willing to trade freedom, power and freedom and liberty for safety, security. They're willing to do it. They've done it throughout history. It's what people do with it. It's a love of money that becomes the evil. The technology is not evil. It's what people do with the technology that becomes evil. And what I'm saying is the Antichrist is going to usurp this technology to create this system whereby he can control the universe. And so for those of you who just are doing online banking, don't panic. You're not worshiping the Antichrist. But understand it's a sign of what's coming. And there will become a day where people will be given that choice.
All right, there you go. So please take into consideration everything that's going on in the world right now. The North Korean stuff is real. The man is trying to fight for his land, and the Rothschilds don't want him to. They want his land too, just like everywhere else they've monopolized. So take care, everyone. Follow the money trail, and you'll see what's going on. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, so on. And there's families above them. So take care, everyone. Again, click like, subscribe, Share this video with everyone you know. Facebook, text, everything. Get it out. Get the information out there. People deserve to know. We can make a difference, but we must all speak up. Oh yeah, don't let me forget. Kim Jong, I have a message for you. Please, I want to meet you. So if anybody out there has any connections to the man in North Korea known as the Supreme Leader, please get in contact with him and tell him I want to meet him. I want to come over there. I want to interview you. I want to put you on my YouTube channel and say your piece, your real true piece of what you have in store and what you think the image of everything is and this vision in your head is. I want everybody to know what your real true words are. All right? So get with me. I know you know English too, so we can do this. We can do this. We can do this. Get with me, Kim Jong. Kim, call me, man. Call me. Peace.
Okay, it's being called a solar triple threat. A full moon, lunar eclipse, and a visible comet, all happening